Hi, I'm Dr. Louise Marler, and welcome to my Thursday Live, where I'm going to spend 10 minutes analysing what I've seen in the news. Now, this week, I have actually had a friend who did a whole executive interview with a virtual moustache, and I'm finding that she got the job, that we are so unaware of the virtual world. She didn't know how to turn it off. That the idea of these sessions is to actually build our awareness to help you see what I can see so that we can change our own skills. So what I've noticed this week is exactly how annoying Kevin Rudd is, the amazing effects of stress on Biden and Turnbull, and Trump's latest communication strategy. So let's have a look at those three things. First of all, Mr. Rudd. Mr. Rudd appeared on Insight this week, and I don't know if you saw it, but what I find about Mr. Rudd is that he is constantly asserting his authority in his body language and voice. Now, that would be a good thing, yes, except that it seems to be there is no break from it, and there is an academic superiority that is, thrown in, and that drives me nuts. So, firstly, Mr. Rudd uses the tell him what you're going to tell him what you told him structure in absolutely everything he says. That's a good thing, except that it's said in a kind of an academic way. So within two paragraphs, he will say, there are two factors here, or there's a second element for the future, or the underlying phenomenon that gives rise to Trumpism are twofold. And this kind of language is just a little bit stilted and odd. And then, of course, there's the Ruddisms. And a Ruddism is where you get a common phrase but get it wrong, like, two birds in a bush is, you know what I mean. And what he said in this particular interview was, he said, Mr. Trump needs to put on his big boy pants. And the tone of that phrase is kind of incongruent with saying something like big boy pants. It's more playful, but he makes it very serious, which is somewhat weird. And that's the next thing he does, is he actually makes statements from phrases that aren't statements. And he does that by taking his last three words, slowing them down and taking them down in intonation. And it's not really a statement, but it gets that authority, which is out of place. He sits bolt upright. He has symmetric hands almost the whole time. He breathes through his nose, sucking in, to himself. He licks his lips like the cat that's got the cream. And then every now and then he throws in a little bit of Chinese. Now, maybe this just annoys me because I don't speak Chinese, but it feels like academic arrogance. So they are the things that I find incongruent with Mr. Rudd. Don't know if you do, but I just throw them forward. Next is the stress analysis of Malcolm Turnbull. Malcolm Turnbull appeared on Insight, and then he appeared on Q&A. And I saw this Malcolm Turnbull and I thought, where was this Malcolm Turnbull when he was Prime Minister? And I see three Malcolm Turnbulls. I see Malcolm Turnbull before he became Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull as Prime Minister, and Malcolm Turnbull now. So what has he been doing? Well, Malcolm Turnbull before he was Prime Minister, you can find videos where he's doing something quite advanced. He's doing gestures that are congruent, different gestures with two different hands. So he might be talking about New Zealand and Australia. And then on this hand, he'll talk about the different qualities that we hold in common. So he's got countries over here, he's got qualities over here, and he would talk in that way. When he became Prime Minister, and it started at the first debate, or it might have been the second debate, he came to the lectern, and there was something about him. He was holding his breath, and suddenly he said, jobs and growth. And I thought, what's happened? What's gone wrong? What happened backstage that has made him so frightened that it's frozen him so badly? And then he began to karate chop. So throughout his term, he karate chopped, and that didn't stop. He also got an edge to his voice, which was hard, and he would close his mouth and get sibilant S's because his teeth didn't open. And you can see this in the Lee Sales interview about his book around his time as Prime Minister. And during that whole interview, he did not separate his teeth and got those sibilant S's. What do we find now? We find Mr. Turnbull side on, unlike Kevin, straight on, side on, Mr. Casual. Suddenly the gestures are back. Suddenly the voice is softened. Suddenly he's talking to his opponent, like, as you would agree, as I'm sure you've experienced, he's engaging other people. And the jaw in the tension has gone to the point where sometimes he goes shh, shh, instead of S, but he's not doing the sibilant S. So Malcolm Turnbull, the stress is gone. And I guess the point here is, what happens to you under stress? And are you aware of it? Next on my analysis is Mr. Biden, because clearly here is a man with enormous experience, but under the pressure of the campaign, we got stuttering Biden. And actually, I didn't find that he stuttered so much as his mouth went into the wrong shape for the sound. So he might go, stutter. You know, why was the mouth open for the word stutter? It just, the mouth went in the wrong shape for the wrong word. He then had distressed smile, and then it was the speed of the onset of his smile where he'd go, suddenly, you know, there is a speed. Is it 0.4 of a second? You need the smile to onset, not too fast. And then he got a hard voice. And the other thing is we got the karate chop direct to camera. All of that has gone. The stutter has gone. The stress in the smile has gone. The speed of the smile's there almost all the time. The voice is softened and the karate chop's gone. The man was under stress. Now he's not under stress. Huge difference. And then we have Mr. Trump. Well, when I think of Mr. Trump, I think of Mr. Potato Head. Now, Mr. Potato Head was a child's toy. I don't know if you remember it, but there was a potato and then you would put eyes on it and a mouth and a hat, depending on the mood of Mr. Potato Head. And he was normally very happy. However, I once saw a joke where Mrs. Potato Head was addressing Mr. Potato Head and she said, "You better take your angry eyes. You might need them." And this kind of implies that for all of us, our facial expressions are a choice, and they are. And more so for Mr. Trump than anyone else, because I find he's very calculated in his expression, and it usually fits his strategy, what he wants the outcome to be. And Mr. Trump has taken his angry eyes at the moment, like Mr. Potato Head. He's taken his angry eyes, and in everything in the news at the moment, we see he doesn't speak and he just looks incredibly angry. And I question, what does this mean for his future strategy? Because he's setting something up. And although I feel the relief of the American election being over, there's that worry about what is he going to do now? So he is very much calculating. So this is my analysis of what's gone on this week. We have Mr. Rudd, who I was fascinated to see back in the news, who I find annoying, and they're the reasons why. Mr. Turnbull and Mr. Biden, what they have done that has shown the effects of stress. And I think that's really important, because we all have to ask ourselves, you know, what is the effect of stress on me? My effect of stress is that I go fast and I lose my vocabulary, which you might hear. I own it. I know it. How do you overcome that? And how do you raise awareness of what you do under stressful situations? And certainly if you're turning, and then Mr. Trump, of course, and what he's doing and his strategy, certainly if you're finding yourself doing an interview with a virtual moustache, it really is time to get help. health. So thank you for listening, and I hope you found that enjoyable, meaningful, and hopefully fun. Thank you very much.